citizens! So on Sunday, I had the wonderful experience of going to the Portland Poetry Slam for the first time in a long time, and I got to watch one of my best friends compete, and she totally kicked ass. She made it to the final round, and so I decided today I was gonna do a video about slam poetry. So if you don't know what slam poetry is, it's kind of an offshoot of spoken word poetry, which is kind of just this general umbrella that slam poetry would fall under. It's meant to be heard and performed out loud, so a lot of the focus is on rhythm and repetition and sounds and wordplay, and a lot of people also use vocal dynamics and hand gestures and a lot of physicality when they're writing and performing these poems. And then a poetry slam is a competition where people get to go up and perform their poems and someone gets to be crowned champion. And the way these slams usually work is based on a structure that was created in the 1980s by a Chicago construction worker named Mark Smith, and it was kind of all focused on bringing poetry back to the people and letting the audience decide what is good poetry. So 5 judges are selected from the audience, and then the poets, usually there are about 8 of them, go up and perform their poetry, and then all the judges will score them on a scale from 1 to 10. And the highest and lowest scores are discarded, and so the poet gets a score out of 30. So after all the poets have performed, the lowest half are eliminated, and the remaining poets go on to compete against each other. And there's several rounds until there's only one person left, and that person gets to win all the prizes. The Portland Poetry Slam does it a little differently. Instead of having all the poets compete against each other in the first round, we put them one-on-one, and then the whole audience gets to cheer for who they want to go on to the next round. So I love slam poetry. I love going to open mics and slams and watching people perform and compete, and I'm really excited that organizations like Button Poetry and Poetry Observed are putting up videos online so that anyone can watch slam poetry no matter where they are. But unfortunately, it seems like slam poetry has kind of a bad reputation among the literary community. A lot of people seem to think that slam poetry is inherently of a lower quality than written poetry. There are a lot of people who don't like the competition aspect and think that it kind of detracts from the art and literature of poetry, and for some reason there are people who have issues with the audience voting on who gets to go through to the next round, because if the audience can vote, oh no, it's basically just American Idol. Not that there's anything wrong with American Idol, I love that show. But anyway, all these arguments just seem really pretentious to me. Like, I get it, there's bad slam poetry, but there's bad everything else too. There are bad movies, there's bad music, there are bad published books, there's bad everything, and that doesn't take away from the things in that same genre or medium that are also good. And this literary pretentiousness is unfortunately the same kind of thing that I also see in nerd culture, which is another place where I hang out, and I've been trying to figure out why that is. And honestly, I think a lot of it just comes down to being a defense mechanism. A lot of us who were into geeky things or books when we were younger got picked on a lot, and so retreating into books and movies and music and video games was kind of our refuge. And when other people come along who we feel maybe haven't had the same experience or love for these things that we've had, we want to push them away. So we tell them that the things that they like or the things that they're trying to bring into our culture are maybe not good enough. And some of this has been reinforced by the history of our culture. We study English and books and plays and literature in school, so we're kind of subconsciously told that the people who like those things are more academic and smarter than the people who don't. And this kind of divisive thinking just irritates me to no end, because when it really comes down to it, people are interested in stories. And just because you like your stories as classic literature doesn't make you any better than people who like their stories as movies or reality shows or sports games or fanfiction or slam poetry. Just let people enjoy things that they enjoy without giving them shit for it. It's not that hard. Anyway, back to slam poetry. When I was at VidCon a couple weeks ago, I got to go to a slam poetry performance that also had a panel on how online video is affecting the future of slam poetry. Someone who was there talked about how slam poetry is kind of like a gateway drug for other kinds of poetry, especially for young people who have had no experience with poetry outside of the classroom, or for people who have never enjoyed poetry before. And this is one of my favorite things about slam poetry. There are so many different styles and subjects out there that there's basically a slam poem for everyone. No matter whether you're interested in pop culture or religion or politics or gender issues, there's probably a poem about something that you can relate to. For a long time, slam poetry has been a refuge for minorities, especially women and people of color, to talk about the issues that they're facing in a place where they can feel safe and respected. There's so much good that slam poetry can do for those who are willing to give it a chance, so I hope that this video will encourage some of you to go out and watch some videos online, or attend a local poetry slam, or maybe write some poetry of your own. If you're interested in watching my friend Julia, who's an awesome slam poet, you can check out some of her stuff on her channel here. I also have another slam poet friend who's a former college professor of mine, and you can check out her stuff over here. For those of you in Portland who might be interested in attending the Portland Poetry Slam, it happens every Sunday night, currently at Slabtown in Northwest Portland, but in August they will be moving to Glyph, which is an arts cafe that's a little closer to central downtown, and every week they do an open mic, followed by a featured poet, followed by the slam competition. You can check out their Facebook page for more information. I've got a link down in the description. I've also put a couple other links down in the description, including Slam Find, which is a mobile app you can use to find slams that are close to you, Slam Nation, which is a documentary about slam poetry, and Button Poetry and Poetry Observed, which are places you can go online to find slam poetry videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment with any of your favorite slam poems or your feelings on slam poetry, and I will be back in 2 weeks with my reading roundup, so stay literary. I should maybe turn the fan off before I start recording. The Individual World Poetry Slam. I know all the acronyms, I don't know what they stand for. There are lots of sirens happening right now. How many times can I say poetry in one sentence? I don't know how to end this video.